to the paradise city, where we all smoke green and the girls are pretty, even with no makeup on.
No, you don't need that makeup.
Take me back to the time and place where the music still rocks and the people weren't fake.
People weren't fake.
Oh, won't you please let me home?
Come on, come on, come on. Put in the time, cause it's worth it. Back against the wall, playing suey tennis balls, can't murk 'em. We Steve Urkel, we keep working on what matters to the family. TGIF Cirque, I'm hurting, but I'm never dropping the ball. Opposite of Ed Reed, but he's stopping them all. I deliver the goods, I keep dropping them off. Ain't been paid, still never taking a loss. Bob Frost with the travels, my road stay dirty. Even if I whisper, I know you still heard me. Truth resonates, my words are Watergate. Put that shit on tape, Woodward and Bernstein. Burned him with his own words against him. Think before I speak, turgid defenseman. Blurred with your words and it's patently absurd. Hand up your ass, your puppeteer's Jim Henson. I might be a grouch, but I ain't no slouch. 7 foot with a straight back, fuck your couch. Rick James spit flames, crazy like Britney. I'm trying to keep my lid on, Lucas can't get me.
Take me down to the paradise city, where we all smoke green and the girls are pretty,
Yep.
even with no makeup on.
Yeah, cause you don't need that makeup.
Take me back to the time and place where the
Right.
music still rocks and the people weren't fake.
Yeah, come
Oh,
on.
won't you please let me home?
Just let me, just let me get a lump in my throat when I think of what could be. More specifically, it's really what should be. Exude confidence, elude arrogance. Venn diagrams dead, no comparisons. So jaded but amazing like Aerosmith. My sweet emotions telling me to get a therapist. Already got one, her name is Hip Hop. And I'ma love that bitch till my heart stops. Hitchcock mystery, I'm trying to make some history. Want my kids to have a world that doesn't love misery. Already got the company, black pays all day. My fan base drives me, you are why I'm on pace. Raise the bar, so high that it is humbling. I never liked limbo, reminded me of Gumby. Dodging all the blockheads, poking at my options. The song ain't even done, but I'm thinking how to top this thing.
Down to the paradise city,
Paradise
where we all
City.
smoke green and the girls
Mr.
are
Peter
pretty,
Moose.
even with no makeup on.
Yeah, you don't need that makeup.
Take me back to the time and place where the music still rocks
And the people weren't fake, motherfucker.
please let me home.
Just let me and just let me
Take me down to the paradise
Paradise
city, where we all
City.
smoke green and the
Girls are pretty, even with no makeup on, yeah. Cause you don't need that makeup.
Take me back to the time and place
Time
where
and
the
place.
music still rocks and the
People weren't fake, no.
Oh, won't you please let me home?
And just let me and just let me Freestyle Friday number 24, E-double. And now some words from Mr. Peter Muth. What's up, Peter Muth here?
Hello and welcome to round 7 of the Core Racing GT3 League. This week we are here at Monza as we have started the qualifying session about 4 minutes in, so drivers have gone out for their out lap. We're looking at about a 1:47 during practice, so it looks like Eric will be the first one to complete a flying lap. So that's a McLaren off in the distance. I believe that was one of the Jeffreys as he comes through the final turn. This track definitely going to favour the Lamborghini's very long straights. Going to use a lot of power. And he goes with a 1:48.9, and Martin Palm just behind him in the Z4 goes fastest with a 1:48.841. And that's Peo in the Lamborghini going with a 1:47.777, with Ross just behind him with a 1:47.916. So very close so far, and it's only been one out lap. As you see, we'll ride on board with Peo in the Lamborghini. Getting it nicely slowed for the chicane. Getting it nicely through there as he comes down to these double right-hander. Through the first one nice and smooth, using all the exit. As he comes down into the final corner, into the second part of the right-hander, using all the curve. A little sideways on the exit as he comes through the DRS zone. However, these cars do not have DRS, so it won't affect the race. As he comes up the run through this chicane section, the left, flowing right to the sharp left again. Now that's shake, using all the curve. The stewards will have to definitely have a look out for that. As you see, these really long straights, one of the longest straights in the season. Definitely going to favour these V10 powered Hurricanes as he comes through the final turn. Will he be able to beat Matteo, who has gone faster in the Lamborghini? He does. He goes faster with a 1:47.588. So that puts him in your provisional pole as Matteo has pulled off to the edge of the track. That's Michael Curvers just behind him. As we come to Michael in the Ferrari, he's been having quite a strong season so far, one of the only drivers in the Ferrari. As he comes down into the chicane section. As you see, really running wide on the exit. Really pushing the car to its limits to try and keep up with those Lamborghinis. So we have a look at the points table from last race. Ross still your race leader with 236 points. Martin Palm still in second with 210. Matteo, your race winner from Imola, he's in third. Jeffrey, your race winner at Silverstone, he's in fourth. Michael Curvers in 5th, Peo in 6th, Nickel Foggy up in 7th, Darren Adams 8th, and his teammate Luca in 9th. As you see the rest of the grid, we come to the team standings. NLR with Thrustmaster is still your championship leaders in terms of the teams, with the Flying Dutchman Motorsports just behind them and Apex Predator rounding up the top 3. DZ Racing being made up of Paul McLeod and Eric. They're in 5th with 178 points. So really close between these top teams. As we're still with Michael Curves, he's in 12th with a 1:49.642. He's a lot lower than he may have wished. That's Luca hopping into 4th now with a 1:48.566, just slightly beating Itamar, who was in the McLaren. He didn't have a very good race last race at Mugello. after he changed cars from the R8, so we'll have to have a look and see whether he has fixed any problems he had before. Payo still your provisional pole. Nickel Foggy down in 8th. He's a lot lower than usual. He's really riding these curbs, as he's just behind Itamar, I believe that is, up in front. Itamar been struggling with some setup just in the practice session before he was announcing, as that's an off for him. He is off in the wall. Really easy section to spin out. Nickel Foggy down in 9th now. So that's Marcy in P7 in the Lamborghini. Getting it nicely through that top 2 right-handers as we come back to Nickel Foggy behind his teammate of Ross McFarlane. Comes down into the final turn. Gets it nice and clean through there. He's only 1600ths of a second behind P8, so hopefully he'll be able to improve. He jumps the way up the grid up into P5 now, as Michael Curvers is in P4 with a 148 flat. Jeffrey still sitting in P5. Nickel Foggy coming through the chicane. Looks like he's going to go for another flying lap. Itamar being punted down to P8, as I believe that is Kostyoff letting Itamar come past. Martin Palm, someone who's been very strong in this season so far. He's in 2nd in the championship. However, he is currently sitting 13th in terms of the qualifying, which is a lot lower than what he would want. Darren Adams down in P12. Not the best qualifying from him so far. He only has 4 minutes left to improve. Eric's in P11. Looks like he slightly scraped the wall there. Not sure what was happening there. He's letting his teammate Paul McLeod come on past the 2 white, orange and black GTRs. As we'll hop for a GoPro shot of Paul McLeod just running slightly wide. That's gonna can't think of the word. It's gonna damage the rest of his flying lap. As we see a newcomer to the league, Viestus, I think his name is. He's in P15 in the Porsche. So we've got another Porsche driver, as well as Tim in the Audi. He's a newcomer to the season, so he won't be certainly fighting at any of the top runners in terms of the championship. However, he may be able to spice it up if he does end up being one of the faster drivers and being towards the top. Jeffrey managing to go even faster. He's up into P4 now with a 147.944. Lucas still sitting in P7. However, he is now in front of Itamar. So that looks like a driver off. I think that is Marcy. Matteo with a 147.437, so he has gone faster. However, he hasn't been able to get up in front of Payo. You see, really working that steering wheel to try and get it through that chicane section. Getting nicely through this long right-hander up into 6th gear. Down hard on the brakes into the chicane. Get it nicely across the inside curbs. Don't want to clip the sausage curbs, as that can unsettle the car and cause you the run out as you come down into this right-hander. Use all the exit possible. You see, try and get that inside curb and run wide, and try and get as best of the run you can down this long straight, as it can really make a huge difference, especially in the slower cars such as the 650S. Hard on the brakes, into the left, flick it right. He's using a lot of inside curb, getting it nicely on the exit as he comes down the long run to the final turn. Hard on the brakes just as the green ends on the left, getting it nicely turned in. Decides to go for quite a tight line and gets it out wide to get the run down the straight. Come as close as you can to the right hand side, try and minimise the amount of run, the amount of distance you have to line. And he goes into second with a 147.252, so still not good enough for that pole, but he is closing down as we have 40 seconds left in the session. Michael Curvers may be one of the last people to get a lap in as he comes through the final turn. 30 seconds left in the session. Nickel Foggy literally just into the 47s with a 147.999, and that's Michael Curvers going faster with a .986, very close between those two, as it looks like Marcy will be the last one to get a lap. Actually, it will be the Audi up behind, which is being driven by Tim. See Marcy coming nicely through the first chicane, getting it nice and clean through there. Through this long right-hander of turn 3, down into the chicane. Nicely on the brakes, gets it flicked into the left, into the right, nice and clean through there. He challenged pole on his final lap at Mugello last week, so will he do the same here to hopefully prevent them from overtaking him in pole? He gets it nicely through turn 7 as he comes down this really long straight, slightly dipping a wheel in the grass as he comes under the bridge down into Ascari, using all the entry curb, flicking it in left, coming along the right hander, using all the curb on the left as well, and the exit curb. This is a pretty perfect lap so far, so it looks like there are 3 drivers behind him. They may be able to finish their lap. As you see, using the green on the outside to really maximise the amount of track he can use. As he comes through the final turn, will he be able to take pole or move up the grid? He does. He goes with a 148.104, which puts him in 7th. Quite a strong lap by him, and he's off in the wall. That is a huge collision. He's really carrying some speed straight across the chicane and into the wall again. Hopefully he is alright in that car. Looks like it has held up fairly well. Will the crew be able to get it fixed in time for the start of the race? Hopefully they will, as otherwise that is an empty grid spot and potentially a battle we may miss out on in the stream, as there's just Peo and Nickel to finish their laps. Nickel letting Peo past. So that's the end of his hot lap as we hop on board with Peo in the Lamborghini. You can really see how strong the Lamborghinis are here, locking out the top row of the grid. Peo coming down the run to turn 8, 9 and 10 of Ascari, down through the tunnel. Lovely sound, the screaming V10. Gets it nicely flicked in, little bit of counter steer there. Really using a lot of that inside curve. The stewards will definitely have a word with him as I'm fairly sure you cannot use that much inside curb as you're basically cutting the track. And unfortunately he's not going to be able to finish his hot lap. So your grid as it stands is Peo, your pole position, with Matteo in second, Ross and Jeffrey in the second row of the grid, Michael Curvers and Nickel third row of the grid, Marcy, Luca, Itamar and Jeffrey making up your top 10, Eric up in P11 with Darren Adams closely behind in the Z4, Martin and Erwin in row 7, Viesters and Costi in row 8, Chris Thorpe and Paul McLeod in row 9, and Tim rounding up your top 10. So we're going to cut to a quick advert break and we will join you before the start of the race. I'm so sorry, I had my microphone muted, unfortunately, so we've missed the start. However, as you see, Marcy now going side by side up the inside into Ascari. That's a driver off. That's Michael Curvesoff and Ross. Both of these drivers getting caught in a collision, and that's Itamar as well off, as they all come piling down into a straight. Real catastrophe through Ascari. As you see, they all come piling down into Parabolica. Luca up the inside of Martin Palm, looking for a move past Marcy. Martin had a really good start. He's up into P9. See, looking for a move round the Lamborghini, however it is so fast in a straight line. A brilliant start by Matteo. He's now having to go defensive from Peo as they come down into turn 1. Peo going to stick it round the outside. No, he backs off and slots in behind. You see all the drivers compiling down. As that's Itamar coming in a collision with the front of Darren Adams. And that has caused Darren to come under threat from Irwin, as they are side by side down into the long right-hander. Darren will have the inside for the chicane. However, it looks like Irwin has managed to stretch his legs and end up in front. However, Darren Adams is not backing out. He slots in behind, unfortunately coming on the brakes slightly earlier than Irwin. So he's now down into P13 and coming under threat from Paul McLeod. Jeffrey on the back of Martin Palm. Martin Palm up into P8 now. He's been doing very well so far in this race. Nickel, Foggy and Ross, they're leading this group of drivers. About 2 seconds separating Jeffrey and Nickel as they come down into Ascari. Jeffrey still rounding off this battle. A little out of shape there for Martin Palm. Thankfully being able to hold it, as I believe that was Itamar using a lot of inside curb. As you see, all these drivers looking for that little inch of slipstream to try and pull them along. As that's Jeffrey looking for a move up the inside. No, he isn't able to make it done. As you see, the drivers are starting to space out now. Costi coming to the back of Tim. Tim having quite a good start. He started from the back. He's now up into P15. Michael Curves, unfortunately, through the Ascari, had a bit of trouble. He's in P18 now. He's going to have an incredible recovery drive, just like last week at Mugello. As you see, Jeffrey closing onto the back of Martin Palm. As we come to Costi, able to get it up the inside of Tim. Visterius going wide through the chicane. Giving Michael Curves the place. He takes that happily. As you see Jeffrey going side by side with Martin Palm down into the chicane. Martin Palm up the inside. Jeffrey slightly outbraking himself. He's having to go across the sausage curbs, and that means he's lost 2 positions to Itamar and Eric, and maybe even another one to Irwin. No, he's able to hold on to the inside. Good start by Eric as well. He's up into P9. As you see these drivers battling it out. Irwin really looking for a move past the black, white and orange Porsche. Darren Adams just behind Irwin as well, so he may look to follow Irwin past Jeffrey. It looked like Eric was thinking of going defensive, however Itamar not being close enough to get past. See all these drivers coming through one by one through Ascari. Jeffrey still being able to hold on to that 11th place. Luca right on the back of Marcy in the Lamborghini. As that's Itamar now popping out from the back of the GTR. He isn't able to make it done. Eric still being in front, holding on to that 9th place. Ross and Nickel going side by side down the long straight. Both the Scottish drivers basically in identical cars. So it looks like Ross is now out in front and will look to chase down Jeffrey up in front. Both of these drivers are going to hopefully tow each other along, as the McLaren is slightly down in straight line speed. So they will look to slipstream and push up to Jeffrey up in front. About 1.7 seconds separating them, so we'll come back to the battle when it is a bit closer. Jeffrey managing to gain a bit of a gap to Irwin and Darren Adams. Really intense first few laps so far. Jeffrey up in front. Irwin managing to close down the gap quite considerably. He looks for a move up the inside into turn 6. Not being able to make a move, however, as they come down into turn 7. Darren Adams closing on to the back of Irwin. Darren Adams obviously racing for the Apex Predator Racing team. He will look to gain some positions. As that's Luca, unfortunately, his teammate is down in 17th. So he may have caught up in a collision. He's got some front damage, so he may have had an argument with a wall. As that's Tim and Michael going side by side. Tim going very far inside, letting these two drivers past. Luca going to hopefully push with Michael to gain up to the drivers up in front. So we come back to Irwin and Darren Adams. Irwin was looking for a move up the inside of that Porsche. However, backing out. It does look like he's got a run there side by side as they come through the final turn. As he tries to slot in the slipstream, however, he's just so fast that he ends up popping out and losing some speed. Really hard time for Irwin, he just can't get alongside. So it's Darren Adams up in the middle looking to opt for the outside. Irwin later on the brakes and managing to get it stopped and get past. Very good move by him. You see Irwin now up into P9, Jeffrey up behind. As it looks like Eric may have got caught in a collision, so it may have been with Luca, as he's now down into P12. As we come to Jeffrey and Irwin, Jeffrey right on the back of that Z4. However, opted not to look for the move into the chicane as they come through turn 6. Gets it nice through there, down into turn 7. It'll outshake on the exit, however, managing to hold it. As we come to Costi closing on the back of Paul McLeod, with Paul McLeod's teammate Eric up in front. Costi right on the back. He's got some front and side damage, so that may affect the rest of his race. As we come to the leaders, Peo really catching up to the back of Matteo. They are side by side down through Parabolica. Peo unfortunately not having the speed around the outside, he has to slot in behind. Come down the long pit straight. As it looks like Peo is now going to look for a move around the outside. Matteo up the inside in the black Lamborghini, Peo in the white, both on the brakes at the same time. Matteo running slightly deep. Will Peo be able to get the run out? No. Unfortunately, he has to slot in behind. Irwin going side by side with Itamar. Itamar looking for a move up the inside. Managing to make it done. Irwin deciding to slot in behind. Michael Curvers going side by side with Paul McLeod. Costi Hope just behind them as well. And Luca just behind him as well. As you see, they all come piling down. So Michael Curvers is now up into P13. Ross managing to close the gap to Jeffrey, unfortunately clipping that inside sausage curb, as I mentioned during qualifying, really can ruin his run out. As you see, he's lost about a second now. Paul McLeod now looking for a move up the inside of Michael. No, Costi Hope going for a really big dive, and he's unfortunately caught the back of the orange GTR. That is unfortunate for Paul. Getting into first gear, jumping over the curb. And now he is down into 18th. Costi waiting up for him. Good sportsmanship by him. Chris Thorpe in the Lamborghini, in the Ferrari, sorry, closing to the back of Tim, a new driver in the Audi. He's up in P15. Luca going side by side with Michael Curvers. Michael strangely backing out and slots in behind Luca. Not sure. However, these two will now work together to hopefully catch up to Eric up in front. About 13 seconds separating the two. Peo, 0.2 seconds. Will he look for a move up into turn 1? Yes, he does. He goes to the outside. Matteo having to drive defensive again. He's near enough had to drive defensive every lap. However, he is still holding on to the lead. Very close racing between these two. Darren Adams and Owen going side by side down into turn 1. Darren Adams going to have the outside. He backs out and lets Owen up. So he's into sorry, that's Jeffrey. He's into 10th. really close battling so far. We're only on the 7th lap and we've already seen a huge juster of positions. Eric closing onto the back of Darren Adams. Darren going defensive as they come down into turn 4. Oh, and Eric had a slight lock up, caused the front to point right. Darren clipping the inside curb, and Eric had to basically stop halfway through the chicane to avoid. Really good driving by him to avoid that contact. See Ross, Nickel and Marcy both chasing down Jeffrey up in front, and about a 2-second gap to Peo up in front, and those two leaders are battling as well. You can just see how much inside curb they're all taking, really trying to push the car to its limits. Really looking to stretch out every tenth of the person up in front, as that looks like Jeffrey is going defensive. Ross is side by side down into Parabolica. No, he slots in behind. He may look for a run out. He's right in the slipstream, 0.3 seconds separating the two as we come to Peo and Matteo, as Matteo is going to have to go defensive into turn 1 again. A reoccurring theme happening between these two. Peo's going to just have to look for a dive eventually, as that's Ross and Jeffrey going side by side just behind as well. And Ross is sticking it up the inside and he manages to get past. However, Jeffrey has got the better run out, and Nickel is just behind Ross as well. They may look to bump draft and hopefully get past. They have to go the long way round this long right-hander. As you see, Jeffrey is up in front, and it looks like Marcy wants to join in as well, as Matteo is having to drive defensive. Will Ross look for a move? No, he doesn't. They all slot back in where they were. However, these 4 drivers have all bunched up very closely together. Nickel having to drive defensive to not come under threat from Marcy. Do you see Marcy's off into the wall, managing to bounce off? However, he has sustained some right side damage. That has caused him out of this battle and potentially out of a podium fighting position. You see Jeffrey now gaining a bit of a lead to Ross. These two drivers up in front battling it out as well. 2.1 seconds separating the two, so those two Lamborghinis are gaining. Just see how much curb they are taking on the inside. Nickel dropping off slightly, 0.9 seconds behind Ross, as it looks like Peo is looking for a move. No, he slots in behind. Ross now looking for a move round the outside into Parabolica. They are side by side, Ross slotting in behind. However, he may be able to get the run out of the turn. He is in the slipstream, 0.3 seconds separating. Hopefully he'll be able to close up and maybe look for a dive up the inside into turn 1. 0.2 seconds. Matteo having to go defensive. Jeffrey also going defensive, as Matteo is able to hold on to leave as we come to Jeffrey and Ross. Ross sticking it around the outside. Little bit of contact, as he's still not being able to get past. Has allowed Nickel to gain right onto the back of the two. Ross was looking for a move up the inside, having to back out as he isn't close enough. Really close racing between these three. You can just tell how good of a drivers these are. They're really close and not having any collisions. Little tap up the rear by Ross. However, he has allowed Jeffrey to gain actually a bit of a gap, as Ross may now come under threat from Nickel, his teammate. 0.2 seconds separating Ross and Nickel, both in the Thrustmaster with the Northern Lights Racing with Pro Racing Thrustmaster. Down into turn 8 of Ascari. Looks like these drivers have spaced out a bit now. You see, really using a lot of the curb. You can just see the front damage on the front of Marcy's car. That may cost him the rest of the race. 0.2 seconds separating Ross and Nickel, and 0.3 seconds separating Jeffrey up in front. Still not being able to get past. As we come on to the onto the 10th lap. Matteo still your race leader, having to go defensive again from Peo. He's been doing this for the past at least 4 laps. Pero really looking for a move past. However, these two drivers are gaining quite a lot of time. 3 seconds to Jeffrey up behind. Jeffrey in P3, closely followed by the two Northern Lights Racing of Ross and Nickel. Marcy in P6. Martin Palm with a great start. He's up into P7. Itamar Yativ into P8. Erwin into 9th. Jeffrey in the Porsche in 10th, being followed by Darren Adams and closely followed by Eric in 12th, as that's Costi going side by side with Tim as they come down into turn 1. Costi going to have the inside. He should be able to get past. He's later on the brakes, so he is comfortably past that white and red Audi. Darren Adams in P11. Eric Rotterdink close behind in P12. Michael Curvers still in 13th, having to drive his recovery drive. However, he is past Luca, so Luca's down in 14th. So we come to the battle for 3rd position, for that podium position. Martin Palm closing up to the back of Marcy as well, so this may turn into a 5-car battle. Ross still trying to close the gap, may look for a move around the outside again through Parabolica. No, he's just opting to go for the racing line, hopefully to get as best of a run as he can out of the corner, to hopefully get alongside Jeffrey down into turn 1 and hopefully this time make it stick. 0.2 seconds. As he's in the slipstream, he will be closing very quickly there. 0.1 seconds. Jeffrey going defensive. Ross round the outside down into turn 1. Ross later on the brakes. Will he be able to make it move this time? Yes, he does. What a great move by Ross. And now Nickel will hope to follow Jeffrey as well. Ross now going to look to chase down the two Lamborghinis in 2nd and 1st. Will he be able to make it another race victory? His last race victory was at Spa. He looked promising at the Nürburgring, however, unfortunately got caught in a collision. Nickel now on the back of Jeffrey. As you see, really closing the gap. However, he was very sideways. Well held by Nickel. 0.3 seconds off now, as you see Martin Palm coming into the battle as well, with Marcy just in front. Nickel using all the exit he can. As we come to Martin Palm, we'll hop from the roof view. As you see Jeffrey and Nickel going side by side. No, Nickel opting out. Jeffrey was going defensive. You can just see how close those two drivers are. As Martin Palm will look for a move on Marcy as well. Nickel going to the outside of Jeffrey. They are side by side down into Parabolica. Nickel backing out, it looks like. Yes, he does. Will he look for a move into turn 1, just like his teammate Ross did? Ross managing to gain about a 2nd gap to Jeffrey up behind, which has allowed him a bit of breathing space. Will Nickel be able to get past down into turn 1? They're coming down across the finish line. Nickel really closing up. Jeffrey going defensive. Ross sticking with the outside. Looks like both drivers are roughly on the same time with the brakes. As that's Martin Palm up the inside of Marcy. What a great move by Martin. Nickel now 0.5 seconds behind Jeffrey, as this battle is definitely heating up. Lap 12 we're on currently. All drivers on the soft tyres, so it looks like they will look for a double soft stint. And that's Martin Palm looking for a move up the inside of Nickel, however not being able to properly get his nose in and to dive up. Nickel now having to drive quite defensive from the attack by Martin. Martin trying to stick it round the outside. She nearly does. Nickel managing to hold on, as that's a dip of the wheel onto the gravel. That's cost his run down into Ascari. Will Martin Palm look to make a move up the inside? 0.3 seconds. Doesn't look like he's going to be close enough. However, that has cost Jeffrey to gain about a 2nd lead over Nickel. So that has allowed Jeffrey a bit of breathing space, really using all that inside curb as that looked like Marcy was up on the gravel on the exit of Ascari. Peo still being behind Matteo. 0.3 seconds separating them as they come down the straight. Matteo going to have to drive defensive again into turn 1. He's been doing it nearly every lap. Will he be able to make it again? Peo opting to the outside there, side by side down into turn 1. No, Matteo still holding on. As we come to the battle between Marcy and Martin. Martin up in front, 0.2 seconds separating the two. Slight use of the curb, which bounced the car, as you saw. Nearly all 4 wheels off the ground. However, Marcy is on the back of that white and yellow Z4. 0.2 seconds separating the two. As they come down into turn 4 and 5. Marcy not looking to make a move, really closing the gap under the brakes, managing to avoid a collision though. As that's Costi now going side by side with Chris Thorpe into turn 1. Costi making the move nice and clean. He's now up into P15. As we come back to that close battle, looks like Marcy did make a mistake, which has cost him to back off a bit. 0.5 seconds separating Nickel and Jeffrey as they come down into the run for Ascari. Ross not being able to close the gap to Peo, however he is gaining to Jeffrey behind. .3 seconds separating them as they come down the run to Parabolica. 0.3 seconds, 0.2 seconds as they come into the braking zone. We come to Peo and Matteo. Matteo going to have to go defensive again. He's been doing this every lap so far. They're side by side. Peo really squeezing him out. Peo did definitely look for a move. However, Matteo still being able to hold on. Nickel Foggy going side by side with Jeffrey down into turn 1. Jeffrey going to have the inside. Nickel, however, is not backing out. Sticking up the inside. Will he be able to get the run? Doesn't look like it. And that means Jeffrey will have the optimal racing line through the right-hander. Will Nickel look for a dive into turn 4? Yes, it does. They are side by side down into turn 4. Both drivers are equally on the brakes. Jeffrey going to have the inside for the second part. However, Nickel is not backing out. They are still side by side. Really good driving by these two as they come into the right-hander. Nickel backing out. However, that has allowed Martin to catch up to the back of these drivers. So it looks like Nickel may have the slightly better run. Down into the long straight before Ascari. 0.2 seconds separating them as they come down into Ascari. Down into third gear. You could just see how much inside curb he is taking compared to Jeffrey. Really using all the track that he can as he is side by side now with Jeffrey. As they come down to the run into Parabolica. Jeffrey gonna have the inside. Nickel backing out. He's going to look for the run into the final corners. He's very sideways. Bush dipping a wheel onto the green stuff, which is very slippery around here, and that has allowed Martin Palm to get up the inside. So Martin Palm is now into the top 10. Matteo and Peo going side by side again into turn 1. Matteo managing to hold on as we come on back to Martin Palm and Nickel Foggy. Unfortunate for Nickel. He will be very disappointed after that slight mistake. However, any mistake between how close these drivers are can cost you massive. And thankfully he only lost a position to Martin Palm, which he's going to fight to get back. Nickel 0.1 seconds behind. Martin going defensive down into turn 4. Nickel managing to get past before the braking zone. Not sure what happened there. But Nickel is now back into the top 5. Martin was going to look for a move into turn 6. However, slots in behind as he's now 0.3 seconds behind. Jeffrey managing to gain a bit of a gap again, as Nickel is really pushing the car as you sort of run wide through that right-hander, dipping a couple of wheels onto the gravel. As Peo and Matteo are side by side now, they had come down to the run into Parabolica. Matteo gonna have the inside, so he should be able to hold on. However, Peo has managed to edge out in front. You see Matteo up the inside. However, Peo is not backing out. He is sticking it around the outside. They are side by side still through Parabolica. Really close racing between the two. Matteo gonna have the inside. Will he be able to hold it like he has done every other lap so far? I'm not sure, as they have been side by side now along the straight rather than Peo being side by side into the braking zone. There's, as you see, they are two abreast down into turn one. Peo opting out and slots in behind, very close to the rear diffuser, and a slight bit of contact there. Matteo managing to hold on to the lead, very close between these two as they come down into turn 3, the long run down before turn 4. Peo, will he look for a move? No, he slots in behind, still looking for a move past that black Lamborghini being driven by Matteo. He was your race winner at Imola. Will he be able to make it a second race win here at Monza? He seems to be very strong at these Italian tracks. Marcy closing to the back of Martin Palm. You see, will he opt to choose to fix that front damage during his pit stop, as the pit window has opened at the end of this lap? We'll be seeing a lot of drivers jump into the pits as it marks the halfway point. As you see, Ross is able to close the gap to Peo. Only about 3/10 last lap. Peo on the back of Matteo again. 0.3 seconds separating them as they come through Parabolica. Will Matteo pit, and will Peo follow? As last week we saw Matteo stay out slightly longer, as Peo baited Matteo into the pits and decides to stay out. So we'll have to see whether the overcut works. Ross into the pits, Jeffrey staying out, Nickel into the pits, Martin Palm into the pits, Marcy staying out, Itamar staying out, Erwin staying out with Eric and Michael Curvers coming into the pits, Luca jumping into the pits as well. Will his teammate Darren Adams follow him? Yes, he does. So only about 5 drivers who haven't pitted on this lap so far, being obviously your top 5. Costi coming into the pits as well. Chris Thorpe deciding to stay out in his Ferrari. So we come to your current race leader, Peo. Will the overcut work? We will have to wait and see as he comes through Ascari. Getting it nice and really using all of that inside curb. The stewards are definitely going to have a really busy time as he comes with only 1 turn left of this long straighted circuit. Comes nicely through Parabolica. Yes, he decides to jump into the pit, so we will hop on board with Matteo as he comes through Ascari. Will he be able to... will the undercut would have worked on Peo, or will Peo stay out in the lead after his pit stop? As you see, he's really using all that RPM range, trying to get as much power out of the car as he can. Down to third into the long right-hander of Parabolica. As Jeffrey's also deciding to stay out in the pits. Peo now coming out of the pits. Matteo now only coming across the start line, so it looks like Peo's overcut has worked. What a great pit strategy by Peo. That has ended him up in front of Matteo by about a second actually. However, Matteo is closing the gap. Obviously Matteo having the warmer tyres now, Peo being on the fresh cold tyres. So we will have to wait and see till the end of the lap to really see whether Peo's pit strategy has paid off. Matteo nearly into the back of that white Lamborghini, slightly across the curb, which caused the car to be unsettled, as you saw. .4 seconds separating Matteo and Peo as they come down into the long run into Ascari. Matteo still not being able to get past that white Lamborghini, however he will be definitely looking to get past soon before Peo's tyres have completely got up to temperature. So really using all that inside curb. As that's unfortunately a retirement for Marcy. That's unfortunate for him. He did sustain some front damage, as you saw Ross in the background using all the exits from Ascari. As it looks like Peo has managed to gain a lead over Matteo, so his overcut has worked. Jeffrey still opting to stay out. He's in turn 3 currently, so he's opting to stay out quite a lot longer on these soft tyres. He seems to be one of the only drivers doing it so far. As you see, I believe that is Eric or Paul McLeod behind him. That is Paul McLeod. He's running in 16th currently. He's obviously racing for DZ Racing in that GTR. Flames coming out of both sides of the car. Really spectacular view. Matteo on the back of Peo. 0.4 seconds still. Will Matteo be able to get past and retake his race lead? He hasn't certainly shown signs, however he isn't passed yet. Anything could happen. 0.4 seconds still separating the two. So we come to Jeffrey coming through the final turn. Will he jump into the pits this lap? Doesn't look like it. Yes, he does. He does jump into the pits as Matteo is caught up to the back, and that looked like a Porsche off. I'm not sure who that was. I think it may have been Vervistus. Peo going defensive, Matteo following him to try and get a slip, and Matteo is just out in front. What a great braking procedure. However, they are still side by side through Parabolic, and Matteo out in the lead now. He's going to go defensive into turn 1 like he has done for previous laps. Peo going to sit in the slipstream, and he pops out before the braking zone into turn 1. Peo going to have the outside. Matteo, now your race leader, will he be able to hold on into the chicane? Yes, he does. So Peo is now your race leader as they come on to their 20th lap. Matteo in the lead, being followed by Peo. Jeffrey in 3rd, with Ross just behind him in 4th. Nickel Foggy in 5th. Martin Palm in 6th. Really good race so far by him. Michael Curvers up into 7th. He was down the order towards 17th, so he's been on a great charge so far. Erwin in P8. Eric Rotterdink in P9, with Luca rounding up the top 10. Itamar Yativ in the McLaren. Clearly still doesn't seem to be 100% comfortable with that car. Darren Adams in P12. He doesn't seem to be comfortable around this track either, as he's down the order compared to where he usually is. Costi in 13th. Chris Thorpe in 14th. Jeffrey in 15th, Paul McLeod in the GTR in 16th, Tim in 17th, and the Porsche being driven by Verstus in 18th. This has not been the best of debuts by both Verstus and Tim. As you see, Rotterdink been able to close the gap to Irwin up in front, 0.3 seconds separating as they come through a Ascari. As you see, you can really see that the track isn't as smooth as it looks with these TV cams. You can see the suspension doing quite a lot of work as he comes through Parabolica. Darren Adams cleanly passed Itamar Yativ, so that puts Darren Adams up into P11 now. Eric not being able to get past Irwin as of yet. Irwin going defensive at Eric, going round the outside down into turn 1. As Irwin is just squeezing him out. Both drivers really unstable in the braking zone. However, Irwin has managed to hold out his lead to Eric. As Itamar Yativ is back past Darren Adams down into turn 1. So Darren Adams is now back down into P12. As you see, the drivers have started to space out now, not as close to battles as they was earlier, with just about 10-11 laps remaining. Will Darren Adams look for a move past Itamar? We will have to see. He will look to do it in the next few laps because there isn't a lot of time left. Ross still not being able to close right onto the back of Jeffrey. However, he has gained about a couple of tenths this last lap. We will check when comparing the lap times. No, he was slightly slower, only by 1/100th of a second. So he's actually been losing a bit of time that last lap. 0.8 seconds separating them as they come through turn 1. Ross 0.7 seconds off the orange McLaren up in front. .7 seconds still as they come down into the chicane for turn 4. As it looks like Matteo has been able to gain about a 3-second lead over Peo. So Peo may have made a mistake, which has cost him to drop off the back of the black Lamborghini, which is unfortunate as they were having a very good battle. Mostly Peo looking for a dive into turn 1, however opting to go defensive. So that has allowed Matteo to be in front, and now your race leader. And it looks like he should be able to carry it home if he manages to keep his pace and not make a mistake, which is easier said than done when driving a really high powered GT3 car, especially with how dangerous the curves are. As you see, he's running slightly wide, a little mistake. Thankfully he didn't run too wide, because that could have caused a major problem and may have ended up his race in a wall. Ross still not being able to close to Jeffrey. 1 second still separating the two. As you see, that's Nickel up behind as well in 5th. Martin Palm in 6th as well. He's been having quite a cracker of a race so far, as that's a back marker going slow, letting Ross pass Nickel and Martin. Great sportsmanlike by Tim. As we come back to Matteo, still your race leader. As he comes through turn 6, nicely through there, he's going to be looking to conserve his tyres and make it to the end. as it definitely can become a problem if he starts pushing and causes some unnecessary wear when he's about 5 seconds actually up on Peo. Jeffrey now looking for a move around the outside of Chris Thorpe through Parabolica. Chris Thorpe holding on, however Jeffrey is looking for the cut back down the start finish straight. Jeffrey is now side by side with Chris Thorpe. They're side by side down the long straight. Jeffrey looking like he's edged out a bit of a lead. That will mean he will be on the inside for the chicane, really squeezing Chris onto the edge of the track. However, he has outbroken himself, having to go across the sausage curbs, and that has allowed Chris Thorpe to gain his place back, as we'll hop on board with a GoPro shot and near enough what Matteo is viewing out of his race helmet. As you see, braking at about 125 meters down into first gear, getting it nicely through the first part, nicely through the second half of the chicane, up through the gears now, up into fifth and up into sixth as well before the braking zone for turn 4. Nicely across the inside chicanes, the inside curb for the chicanes. As we come to Jeffrey going side by side again with Chris Thorpe. Jeffrey really pushing and seems to be a lot faster than Chris is. Nearly ran wide through that little left section before the long straight. So that means Jeffrey is now up into P14. As we come on back to Matteo, back on board. Down hard on the brakes, as that's an orange GTR up in front. That's either Paul McLeod or Eric. I would have thought it was Paul McLeod, however I'm not sure. Matteo up into 6th gear. You can just see the difference in braking zone there. Ross actually closing the gap up quite considerably to the back of Jeffrey. They are side by side down into the run for Parabolica. Ross on the outside, Jeffrey in the inside. They are side by side. Ross unfortunately backing out, and Jeffrey managing to etch out in front of Ross. Ross not going to back out, however, as they come down the start finish straight. Ross in the slipstream of the orange McLaren. Jeffrey going defensive. Ross on the outside. He's made a move round here once. Will he be able to make it a second time? Not this time. He's right on the rear diffuser of that McLaren 650S. 0.3 seconds separating them as they come down through turn 3. 0.3 seconds still. This is the closest battle currently on track. As you see, clipping that inside curve, you can just see how much that unsettles the car through the entire section, and you can just see how much time you can lose. That's about another 6/10 he's just lost by clipping the inside curb. Matteo coming through Ascari. Nicely through the first half. Nice and clean through the second. About 7 laps remaining in this race. Matteo up in front. Down through Parabolica. Peo now about 7 seconds, so unfortunately he's dropped off quite a lot from Matteo. Not sure what has happened with him, but it has allowed Jeffrey to catch up behind, as well as Ross. So this may potentially be a second place for Jeffrey if he can hold on and push. However, Ross will be putting on pressure, which will make it very hard for him to gain any time on Peo. So they come down into turn 1. 0.8 seconds separating the two. As we'll hop on board with Ross for a lap. Nicely through this long right-hander of turn 3. I will leave you on board and let you have a listen to the audio of the McLaren. A very different noise compared to the rest of the cars. As you can just see how much he is really pushing that car. It's nice to really get a sense of what the driver is feeling inside the cockpit of this monster of a car. Getting nicely through Parabolica. As you see, not really much battling going on so far. As that looks like a Porsche coming onto the back of Paul McLeod in 16th. Ross currently sitting in 4th. 0.8 seconds separating him and Jeffrey. Will they be able... It looks like Jeffrey has really caught up to the back of Peo. About 4 seconds separating those two. As there's a bit of traffic now for Jeffrey. Nicely through the Porsche. Now looking to get past the GTR of Paul McLeod. Getting nice and clean past Ross, sorry. He's going to thankfully be able to get past down the straight, so he won't be interrupted as much as Jeffrey was. However, he got through very cleanly. So come down into Ascari. Jeffrey still holding on to that podium position. As you see, Nickel being caught in a bit of trouble in terms of traffic. Ross really closing up to the gap of Jeffrey. Ross seems to be very strong out of Ascari. Martin Palm now closing up to the gap of Nickel Foggy. They are side by side as well as Ross and Jeffrey. Nickel still managing to hold up. However, Martin Palm is not backing out. They are side by side down through Parabolica. Nickel on the outside. Martin Palm on the inside. He's going to have the inside into the chicane. However, there looks like there's a bit of traffic as well. Ross going side by side with Jeffrey as well. They come down into turn 1 as well as Martin Palm and Nickel. Ross, will he be able to make it stick through the second half? Yes, he does. So he's now into the podium position as we come back to Nickel and, between Nickel and Martin Palm. Nickel managing to hold on to 5th place. What a battle as Jeffrey is now looking for a move round the outside through turn 3. He will have the inside for turn 4. However, Ross will have the inside for turn 5. As Jeffrey has managed to edge out in front, so Jeffrey now holds on to that 3rd place. Nickel in 5th still, coming under pressure from Martin Palm behind. As you can just see how much time Peo has managed to gain purely due to these two battling. So we come to Martin Palm and Nickel Foggy. 0.2 seconds separating these two. Will Martin Palm look for a move up the inside into Ascari? Looks like Nickel is looking to go defensive. So we may be thinking that Martin may look for a move. Martin going round the outside. Nickel sticking defensive, going for the inside line. Nickel breaking slightly earlier, however managing to hold it there. Still side by side through the second half. Nickel having to use all the curb on the inside to try and avoid contact. However, that means Martin Palm is now into the top 5. What a battle between these two. Will Nickel look for a move up the inside into Parabolica? No, he doesn't. He may look for the run out to hopefully get up the inside for turn 1. Little out of shake mid-corner. However, is still holding on. 0.3 seconds now separating these two. As we come to Luca on the back of Eric Rotterdink in the GTR. 0.2 seconds separating these two as they come through Parabolica. Will Luca be able to get past the GTR? The GTR very fast in a straight line as well. Looks like he isn't able to get the run out, so he has to stay behind the orange GTR. As we come to Martin Palmer and Nickel Foggy again. Nickel gonna look to get back that top 5 finish, as there isn't that many laps, only 3 laps remaining in this race. It's been a very good race so far. In terms of battles, it's been a constant battle through most of the race, even with some 4-car battles at some point, all battling for 3rd place. However, it's now coming down to Martin Palm and Nickel Foggy. Closest battle currently on track. 0.2 seconds between Martin Palm and Nickel Foggy. Nickel got a really good run out of that right-hander. They are now side by side as they come down into Ascari. Martin gonna have the inside. Nickel round the outside. It's a very long way to go. However, if he can hold it, which he can, he gets through nice and cleanly. A little bit of contact maybe there between the two. Did cause Nickel to go slightly wide. However, he has edged out in front. Michael Curvis looking to get past the GTR of Paul McLeod. As these two are side by side down through Parabolica. Nickel gonna have the inside. Martin Palm got a long way to go if he wants to go around the outside. As they are side by side down into turn 1. Down this really long pit straight. Eric and Erwin going side by side. So Erwin is now into P9. And Luca very sideways. How did he hold that? What a great drive by him. As we come back to Nickel Foggy up the inside of Martin. Really good move by Nickel. So he's now back up into the top 10. Erwin on the back of Eric Rotterdink now. Erwin going for the inside line. Eric opting to not go defensive. He holds on. Luca closing up quite considerably in the braking zone. Erwin looking for the cutback, which he manages to do. Eric going to have the inside through this long right-hander, which can really make a difference in terms of distance. As you can just see, the power of that GTR has caused him to be very far up in front now. As this has turned into a 3-car battle with only 2 laps remaining in the race. Martin Palmer looking for a move up the inside, not being able to stick his nose in. Luca on the back of Erwin as well, so this is very close between these, about a second separating Eric and Luca. Martin Palmer on the back of Nickel. You can just see how much curb Nickel is taking. As we come back to the battle between these 3 drivers, the DZ Racing of Eric and the Apex Predator Racing of Luca. And Owen, I believe, a privateer racer. See, Luca is now right on the back of Erwin, so Owen will come under threat from Luca in that bright green Z4. He is back in his car. As you can see, he's feeling a lot more comfortable in his car compared to last week. And that's Luca now past Erwin. So Luca is now into P9 and is going to look to chase down that bright orange GTR up in front. 0.3 seconds separating Erwin and Luca. 0.2 seconds. Will Erwin look for a move up the inside? Yes, he does. However, Luca brakes later than Erwin, and Erwin has to slot in behind, rounding up the top 10. .4 seconds separating them as they come through turn 3. Down into the chicane of turns 4 and 5. Eric still leading this bunch in P8. Michael Curvers in P7. He's been racing very well so far. You see Nichols still holding on to P5. Managing to gain about a second to Martin Palm behind, so that has allowed Nicol a bit of breathing space. Ross still on the back of Jeffrey, and both of these drivers actually closing out quite considerably to Peo up in front, so they've only got a couple of laps to do it. The leader is actually on their last lap, so this will be their final lap, the white flag lap. Will Ross be able to get past Jeffrey up in front? Will Jeffrey be able to get past Peo if Peo makes a mistake? It's all to play for in this final lap. Will Ross be able to make it yet another podium, or will Jeffrey be able to hold on? You see Ross not being able to get alongside for his currently his favourite overtaking spot, I think. That seems to be the chicane where he's made most of his overtakes. Luca on the back of Eric now, 0.3 seconds separating them as they come on to their final lap. This will be the main battle that we're focusing on, as this is the closest on track. Will Luca look for a move up the inside? No. He's still behind that orange GTR. However, he is not that far behind. Maybe about a car length between the two, so it's very close between these drivers. Will he be able to make it past? We'll have to wait and see as they come into turns 4 and 5. Luca getting quite a nice run actually, so he's closed up considerably. However, he won't be able to get past in this double right-hander, not unless if he really goes for a last-minute dive. Matteo coming around the final turn. He will be your race winner here at his home circuit, I believe, in the Lamborghini, and that is a race victory for Matteo, his second one of the season. Peo in second in the Lamborghini as well, really good drive by him. Jeffrey in third with Ross in fourth, his teammate Nicol in fifth, and it looks like Martin won't be able to challenge as we come back to Luca and Eric. Michael Curvers in seventh, he should finish comfortably seventh. Eric and Luca going to battle it out right towards the end as they come down into the final turn. Only one left corner for Eric to hold on. Doesn't look like Luca is going to make it past, so that means Eric finishes in 8th, sorry, and Luca in 9th. Owen was with those two drivers, however he's now in P10. Itamar Yativ still not fully comfortable in that 650S, it seems. He's finished P11. Darren Adams in 12th. Costi in 13th. Jeffrey in 14th. Paul McLeod in 15th. Tim, as he comes through his final corner for his debut race, he's finished 17th. With Priad in 18th. So overall, a really good race here at Autodrome de Monza. As you see Jeffrey coming through the final turn, he finishes in 14th in the Porsche. So all in all, a very good race here at Monza. As you see, next week we will be at the Barcelona GP circuit in sunny Spain. Definitely going to be very hot there, so we'll have to see whether temperatures come into play or not. And then we'll only have one more week on the 30th of July where we will be at the UK circuit of Brands Hatch. Thank you all very much for joining. From us in the commentary box, we will see you next week. Goodbye.